the Property Pod. Welcome to the Property Pod with Moneyweb. The property sector is an ever-changing sector. And in this podcast series, your host, Suren Naidu, chats to movers and shakers in the property industry.
Hello and welcome to the Property Pod, South Africa's premier property investor podcast. My name is Suren Naidu, and on this weekly Moneyweb show, we gain insider insights from leading executives, analysts, developers and entrepreneurs in South Africa's expansive property industry. Despite the office space glut in Sandton, SA's financial hub, some new niche and mixed-use developments are still coming to market. One of the latest to be announced earlier in April is Phase 2 of the Sandton Gate precinct. At a key entry point into the Sandton CBD, that's via the old William Nicol Drive, which was officially renamed Winnie Mandela Drive last year. Sandton Gate is being jointly developed by Tiber and Abcon developments, with Phase 2 including office and retail space. To tell us more about the project now and the market in general is Abcon Managing Director Bryce O'Donnell. Bryce, a very warm welcome to the Property Pod on Moneyweb.
Suren, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So, Phase 2 of Sandton Gate, I'm quite familiar with that node. We actually had our Christmas party there as Moneyweb in one of the restaurants last year.
Good. I hope they were good to you.
It was. Thank you. Tell us a bit about Phase 2. Why now? Is there demand in the market considering what I said in my intro, or is this somewhat of a speculative development?
Suren, Phase 2 for us is a mixed-use scheme. It's commercial and retail. We definitely see the need for the retail. You know, when we talk to some of the key grocers, they're desperate to capture more of the market. That sort of homebound journey out of Sandton down Winnie Mandela Drive is a key target for them. So they are looking to get present. So we've got very keen interest from the retailers on our retail space. And during the broader Sandton market, I know the narrative's been quite bleak since COVID. Everyone talks about vacancies in Sandton. But when we look at the stats and we look at the numbers, those vacancies are decreasing, and they're decreasing quite quickly. And when we look notionally to our own portfolio, we're seeing a big return to office. So we see the demand for offices, and we see the demand for bespoke premium offices.
Give us some more detail in terms of what this new phase will entail and what's the overall capex or development cost.
So we've got just over 12,000 square meters of bespoke retail. We've got a big pharmacy, 2 grocers. We're in the final throes of those negotiations. So I'm not going to put their names out just yet, but you could have a guess as to who they are, I'm sure. One
of them are on the graphics you said, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is actually them.
Yeah, it would be. But so, you know, we enjoying the negotiations with them. They're very keen on the space, and we've got 2 phenomenal restaurants that are coming in there that are taking big prime locations. So that retail center will be convenience in nature, convenience driven, but very bespoke in its offering. We're trying not to duplicate what you see up and down every sort of main arterial in Joburg. And we've got some really niche, interesting tenants that are new to Gauteng, some of them new to South Africa. So we expect a properly differentiated offering. And then on top of the retail center, we've got 2 office towers with a total GLA of 10,000 square meters of bespoke premium offices.
And just for some context for our listeners who might not be aware of this development or not stay in the area, as it were, or work in Sandton, what was part of Phase 1 and when was that complete?
So the development's been ongoing for some time. You know, I was looking back at our records just ahead of this discussion, and between Tiber and the Abcon group, they started the acquisition process, I think, in 2006. You know, so it took quite a long time to acquire all the properties. It took quite a long time to get the rezonings through, to get the planning through, and to go to market. And in 2019, with a bang, Phase 1 came onto the market, a 15,000 square meter office block. And it opened, unfortunately, just before the sort of COVID pandemic, and that put a bit of a slowdown on the whole precinct rollout. So Phase 1's got, 011, where you mentioned you would have had your Christmas party last year, which is one of the Baron offerings. It's got some bespoke retail. It's got a Seattle coffee. It's got optometrists. It's got salons, and 15,000 square meters of offices above that. And Phase 2 then links directly onto that, expanding that piazza people space that we've created so far.
And what are we talking in terms of development cost on like phase 2? What is expected to be invested, and perhaps a little bit of insight into the scale of phase 1?
It's hard to estimate exactly what the value is on completion, because it's driven in part by when you complete it. But by our sort of projections, by the time we finished all of this, we just short of 70,000 square meters of commercial bulk, we 12,000 square meters of retail. We've got about 350 apartments in the precinct, and all the ancillary services in water and solar and everything that goes on it. We're looking at an investment that sits probably just under 3 billion rand by the time it's completed.
So that's the entire precinct of 70,000 square meters?
Yeah, that'll be the precinct when it's finished.
Abcon is one of the developers. As I mentioned, Tiber also there. That's quite a familiar name also in the Sandton and Gauteng market. Is Abcon a new business? As I understand, the company called Ablan was initially involved. Do you want to give us some context around that? Because, why don't I know the name Abcon?
So Abcon and the Abcon group have been around now for, I think it's just over 40 years, 42 years this year. It started out as what was known as A&B Construction. The founders of that business are still involved in Abcon and the Abcon group today. And that business evolved over many iterations into a number of different property-related businesses. One of them that was well known to the market was Abland. And through sort of series of succession planning and change in leadership and change in direction, Abland elected to move their own way and left the group a couple of years ago. And the group has carried on under its banner as it has done for the last 40 years, which is Abcon.
And then personally, how long have you been with Abcon, and what are some of the other developments the group is involved with? Because some of our property insiders would know that the likes of the founders were also involved in Pivotal's listing at one stage and some other landmark developments which are now owned by Redefine, for example.
That's 100% correct. And the founders have listed many funds over the years. Those funds have been picked up by some of the other listed vehicles, Redefine, for example. So we sit on large tracts of land throughout South Africa that have been acquired over many years with partners like Redefine. And we've got 700 hectares sitting out on the east rand of Johannesburg at a place called S&J. That's an industrial development that we co-own with Redefine. We've got a similar size scheme on the east of Pretoria called the Hazeldean Precinct, in which our residential business Craft Homes is busy rolling out a number of housing units. We've got some retail due to come up there, some commercial. And then we've got pockets of retail and commercial scattered around Gauteng. We've got some stuff opposite Monte Casino at a place called Monte Circle. We've got stuff in Waterfall. We've got stuff in Centurion at an office development called West End. And then throughout South Africa, together with a number of different partners, we're rolling out convenience retail schemes of various scales. So we've got any one time, we've got a half a dozen to a dozen projects in the ground.
Thanks for that, Bryce. I'm just interested about the Waterfall precinct. Can you give us a little bit more detail on that? Because it's right outside Waterfall City, which is an attack development. So the founders were quite strategic in kind of land banking, as it were, because there's quite a bit of office being developed there, and I believe a BMW dealership that's open. It's like a mini Waterfall City just across the road.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking the other day to Tace, and he said to me that he bought the Waterfall land just on the right of Allendale as you come off the highway going towards Kyalami. It's on the right-hand side. He bought it in 1994, 1996.
Wow.
So the vision as to when this would come up was certainly there, and there's no doubt it's been accelerated by the success of the Waterfall node. And I mean, that node equally bisects Joburg and Pretoria. It becomes quite a nice commercial haven. We've got, as you mentioned, some car dealerships that were along that strip. There's a retail centre called Waterfall Ridge there. We've just started with the phase 2 of that Waterfall Ridge development, which has got Woolworths as an anchor, as well as a couple of key restaurants. And we've got the Hartford Office Park development, which on completion will be 75,000 square meters spread over 10 buildings in like a parkland type environment. And again, we're finding that the office inquiries in that node are strong, and we're getting a lot of traction. Guys have rolled out a building a year, that kind of story.
Bryce, before you go, just within the context of the whole Sandton Gate precinct, I would think most of your developments are green building led wherever they are. Are we still seeing corporates and businesses looking for green buildings to up their ESG commitments and so forth, or are they being a bit conservative now, considering the market is quite tough, the economy is not exactly booming?
Suren, it was interesting. I had a multinational out to see us for a new office, and their sort of VP asked me, he said, with a very straight face, he said, will you be providing a bit of solar and a bit of green? I looked at him, got dead in the eyes. I said, unfortunately, we suffer a bit with electricity in this country and load shedding. We put solar on as a matter of necessity, not for necessarily the ESG points that come as an added benefit. So definitely in the South African corporates, it's a big thing, and it's a big thing to protect the work environment, to protect productivity, to provide stable power, to provide reliable power. And solar is significantly cheaper than running generators, so it provides cheaper power and therefore, lower costs of occupancy. And the same is said for water. What was solar a couple of years ago is now water. We need big backup facilities, we need big filtration facilities, big storage tanks, boreholes, all those kind of things to make sure that when things don't go so well in the municipality, we're still okay. Our tenants can still survive, they can still trade, they can still do what they need to do that's key to their business.
On that note, considering the water issue in Joburg, it's raised its ugly head, particularly over the last few months. Does that increase the development costs in such situations? Does it impact your profitability, as it were, as well?
It does, for sure. And, we were sitting around the table, sometime last year having a debate about the cost and the benefit. And the honest truth is it is a cost. It is an additional tax, but it is a non-negotiable. You have to do it to attract the tenants. You have to do it to make your development sustainable, and therefore you have to do it to defend the value of your asset. So it's become a lot less of a debate and a nice to have, and we will not start a development unless we've sort of ticked all of those boxes and made sure that our water infrastructure is secure, made sure that our electrical and solar infrastructure is secure, and made sure that we connect robots to the buildings so that the precinct around us is secure. And, we're just trying to fix where there's shortfalls and trying to improve what's around us, because we find when we do that, our assets are valued that much better, and it becomes defensive as opposed to a luxury.
Bryce, I appreciate your time today. That was Abcon Managing Director Bryce O'Donnell.
Thanks for listening to the Moneyweb Property Pod with Suren Naidu. To listen to more episodes, go to moneyweb.co.za or the Moneyweb app and follow Moneyweb News for daily updates. Follow Suren on Twitter @Suren Naidu for more of his property industry content and other business stories. The Property Pod.